June 15, 1944. Imperial Japanese Navy Intelligence Station, Rabaul. Captain Tsunezo Wachi pressed his headphones tighter against his ears, straining to make sense of the American radio transmission crackling through the static. For 3 hours, he had recorded the strange sounds, syllables that followed no pattern his team recognized. Wachi had broken American codes throughout the Pacific campaign. He had deciphered British naval codes at Singapore. His team had cracked Chinese diplomatic communications. But these transmissions defied every principle of cryptography he understood. The sounds weren't random. They had structure, rhythm, clear beginning and ending points. American operators repeated certain phrases, suggesting standardized communication. Yet when Wachi's linguists attempted phonetic transcription, the results were gibberish. No European language, no Asian language. Nothing in their reference library of 47 languages matched even a single word. What Wachi couldn't know was that he was listening to Dinebizad, the Navajo language spoken by Marines from the American Southwest. Within those incomprehensible syllables lay tactical orders coordinating the assault on Saipan. By the time Japanese commanders realized they were under attack, American forces had achieved complete surprise. The unbreakable code had just claimed another victory. Japanese military intelligence was among the world's best in 1942. They had broken American diplomatic codes before Pearl Harbor, giving them critical advantage in planning. Throughout 1942 and early 1943, Japanese cryptographers successfully intercepted and decoded significant American communications. Their success created dangerous overconfidence. When the new American code appeared in August 1942 during the Guadalcanal campaign, Japanese intelligence assumed it was a temporary cipher, complex but ultimately breakable like all others. They assigned their best cryptographers to the problem. 6 months later, they had made zero progress. The Navajo language possessed qualities that made it cryptographically perfect. Spoken by fewer than 30,000 people, almost entirely within the Navajo Nation spanning Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah, it had no written form standardized for military use. Its syntax bore no relationship to Japanese, German, or any language Japanese linguists studied. The language used tonal variations where pitch changed meaning entirely. It contained sounds that didn't exist in Indo-European languages, creating phonetic combinations impossible for non-native speakers to reproduce. Most critically, Japanese intelligence had no Navajo speakers, no reference materials, no linguistic foundation to begin analysis. The Marine Corps program began in May 1942 when Philip Johnston, son of a missionary to the Navajo Nation, proposed using Navajo speakers as code talkers. Johnston, who had grown up on the reservation and spoke Navajo fluently, understood that the language's complexity made it naturally secure. The first 29 Navajo recruits arrived at Camp Elliott, California, and immediately faced a challenge no other Marines encountered. They had to create military vocabulary in a language that had no words for tank, bomber, aircraft carrier, or grenade. The solution demonstrated remarkable creativity. A tank became Cheidagahi, tortoise. A bomber was Jaisho, buzzard. A battleship was Lotso, whale. Grenades became Nimasi, potatoes. Fighter planes were Dahitihai, hummingbird. The code talkers developed a phonetic alphabet using Navajo words for animals. A was Wolachi, ant. B was Shush, bear. C was Moasi, cat. This allowed them to spell words that had no Navajo equivalent while maintaining the code's security. The system was elegant and devastatingly effective. During training exercises, code talkers transmitted and decoded messages in 20 seconds that took cipher machines 30 minutes to process. The speed advantage alone would prove decisive in combat. By November 1942, the first code talkers deployed to Guadalcanal with the 1st Marine Division. Japanese forces on Guadalcanal had grown accustomed to intercepting American communications and using that intelligence to position their forces. When the code talkers began transmitting, Japanese radio operators recorded everything but could make no sense of it. Major General Tadashi Sumiyoshi, commanding Japanese artillery, noted in his diary that American communications had become completely unintelligible, preventing his forces from anticipating American movements. For the first time in the Pacific War, Japanese commanders were blind to American tactical plans. The impact was immediate and profound. At Tarawa in November 1943, Code Talkers transmitted over 800 messages during the 76-hour battle without error. Japanese defenders, monitoring American radio traffic as standard practice, heard coordinated American movements but couldn't decode the transmissions to understand attack vectors. The frustration was palpable in captured Japanese documents. One intelligence report stated, "American forces employ unknown communication method. All attempts at decryption have failed. Recommend capture of American radio operators for interrogation." But capturing a code talker proved nearly impossible, and those attempts that came close were thwarted by the Marines' protection of these valuable assets. The code talkers operated under extraordinary pressure. They memorized hundreds of code words, translated complex military orders instantaneously, and worked in combat conditions where a single mistake could cost American lives. Private First Class Samuel Begay transmitted artillery coordinates during the Battle of Bougainville while Japanese snipers fired at his position. He completed the transmission, enabling American artillery to destroy Japanese positions that had been pinning down an entire Marine battalion. His accuracy under fire exemplified the code talker's remarkable composure. Japanese attempts to break the code grew increasingly desperate. Intelligence units assigned linguistic experts to analyze recorded transmissions. They compared sound patterns to every known Native American language in their archives, including recordings made by anthropologists decades earlier. They consulted with German allies who had extensive linguistic research. Nothing worked. The phonetic structure was unlike anything in their experience. One captured Japanese intelligence officer told interrogators in 1945 that breaking the Navajo Code had been deemed impossible by mid-1944, leading Japanese forces to focus instead on jamming American communications or conducting radio silence themselves. By Iwo Jima in February 1945, 6 code talkers working around the clock transmitted over 800 messages in the first 48 hours of fighting. Major Howard Connor, signal officer for the 5th Marine Division, later stated, "Were it not for the Navajos, the Marines would never have taken Iwo Jima." The code talker's ability to transmit complex tactical information instantly and securely enabled the coordination of forces across the island's volcanic terrain. Japanese commanders monitoring American radio traffic heard constant communication but understood none of it, leaving them unable to predict American movements or concentrate their defenses effectively. The speed of Navajo transmission created an insurmountable advantage. While mechanical cipher machines required 30 minutes to encode, transmit, and decode a message, code talkers accomplished the same task in 20 seconds. In the chaos of battle, this speed differential meant American commanders received intelligence and issued orders faster than Japanese forces could react. The code talkers essentially accelerated American decision-making cycles beyond Japanese ability to counter. This temporal advantage, combined with absolute security, revolutionized battlefield communications. Japanese racial ideology, which proclaimed Japanese superiority over all other races, particularly non-white peoples, suffered a profound contradiction through the code talkers. Here were Native Americans, people Nazi and Japanese propaganda dismissed as primitive, defeating the best Japanese cryptographers through the sophistication of their language. This cognitive dissonance troubled Japanese military theorists who encountered evidence of the code's effectiveness. The Navajo Marines were everything Japanese propaganda said they should not be. Technically skilled, courageous under fire, and possessing a linguistic weapon Japan couldn't counter. Approximately 400 Navajo Marines served as code talkers during World War II. They participated in every Marine assault in the Pacific from 1942 to 1945, transmitting thousands of messages without a single decryption by Japanese forces. 13 code talkers were killed in action, their sacrifice ensuring American tactical communications remained secure. The survivors returned to the Navajo Nation as unsung heroes, forbidden by military classification from discussing their service for 23 years. Their code remained classified until 1968, protecting it for potential future use. The strategic impact was immeasurable. Every major Pacific operation from Guadalcanal to Okinawa depended on secure communications the code talkers provided. Japanese intelligence, which had successfully exploited American communications earlier in the war, was rendered completely blind. The psychological impact on Japanese forces was severe. They knew Americans were coordinating complex operations but couldn't intercept the intelligence needed to counter them. This information dominance contributed significantly to American tactical superiority throughout the Pacific Campaign. In 1982, the Code Talkers finally received public recognition when President Ronald Reagan declared August 14th National Code Talkers Day. The original 29 Code Talkers received Congressional Gold Medals in 2001. At the ceremony, former Japanese intelligence officer Yoshitaka Hori, who had spent the war attempting to break American codes, spoke. "We tried everything to break your code," he said through an interpreter. "We brought in our best linguists, recorded hundreds of hours of transmissions, analyzed every pattern. It was impossible. Your language and your courage defeated our intelligence service completely." The Navajo Code Talkers proved that in modern warfare, information security can be as decisive as firepower. They demonstrated that indigenous knowledge, dismissed by both Axis propaganda and too often by American society, contained strategic value beyond conventional military thinking. Most profoundly, they showed that cultural diversity itself could be weaponized, that the very differences racist ideologies attacked could become unbreakable shields. The young Navajo men who enlisted faced discrimination at home yet served with distinction abroad, protecting American lives through the language their grandparents had been forbidden to speak in government boarding schools. Japanese cryptographers never broke the Navajo Code because it wasn't a code in the traditional sense. It was a language, a living expression of a culture that had survived centuries of pressure to assimilate and disappear. The same qualities that made Navajo difficult to eradicate made it impossible to crack. Its complexity was its strength, its isolation was its power, its survival was America's secret weapon. When Captain WWII finally stopped trying to break the unbreakable code in March 1945, he understood he had encountered something beyond cryptography. He had confronted culture as weapon, and culture had won.